I liked Richard, the kind of desire that sparks purely from attraction. From the moment I first laid eyes on him, certain thoughts began sprouting wildly in my mind. But Richard, he always carried that distant, indifferent look. After chasing him to no avail, I was ready to give up. Until the moment Richard locked me in his house and kissed me senseless, I was utterly stunned. Is this how Mr. Bass talks to his students? Richard bit my earlobe gently, his voice low and urgent. How should I talk him? Teach me. Richard Bass was my college professor, elegant, fair-skinned, and always serious. Despite his strictness, that face alone had earned him a massive following of fanboys and fangirls. Even if he failed them or deducted points, no one ever blamed him. Instead, they only admired him more. One day, I accidentally found an old graduation photo of my sisters. To my surprise, she and Richard knew each other. When I asked her about it, she confirmed they were quite close but had lost touch over the years. I teased her, with such a high-quality friend, "Why are you still single?" My sister rolled her eyes. "You think I didn't try? If he liked women, he would have been your brother-in-law by now." Hearing that, my eyes lit up. It all made sense. The next day, my sister arranged to meet with Richard. I intentionally waited until they were well into their conversation before making my entrance. "Sis, Mr. Bass, hello. I just got out of class." I set my bag down and slid into the seat beside my sister, acting all familiar. My sister glanced at me and quickly introduced, "This is Phil, my brother." Richard nodded. "I've seen him before. He looked familiar during roll call. He was just a kid when you saw him. Now look at him, over 6 feet tall." Richard adjusted his glasses, giving me a quick once-over. "Yeah, he's grown tall." I flashed him a bright smile. "Mr. Bass, if you ever need help with anything, I'm at your service." My sister nudged me. "Don't go causing trouble for Mr. Bass now." Then she turned back to Richard. "I never thought, after all these years, you'd end up as my brother's teacher." Richard smiled warmly. "It surprised me too. I heard from our alumni group you were teaching up north. You're from that area, right? What made you come down here?" At her question, Richard paused, a flicker of emotion passing through his eyes. He looked up and smiled. "The world is vast. I couldn't stay in just one place." Sensing my sister was about to dig deeper, I quickly shoved some food onto her plate. "Sis, this is good, eat more. Mr. Bass, you should try this too." When the meal ended, I eagerly ran over to Richard. "Sis, you can go ahead. I'll go back to campus with Mr. Bass." My sister gave me a knowing look, forcing a smile. "Richard, Phil is in your hands. Please look out for him." Richard returned her smile gracefully. "It's on the way. Drive safe." After my sister left, Richard didn't say much. I kept babbling next to him nonstop. "Mr. Bass, I couldn't believe it when my sister said you two were classmates. Mr. Bass, did you know? I didn't think you'd actually join us for dinner." "Richard." I went on, but Richard didn't respond. I couldn't tell if he was annoyed or just quiet, so I stopped talking too. Perhaps the silence became too noticeable. Richard suddenly stopped walking and turned to look at me. I lifted my head, my dark eyes locked onto his. "Mr. Bass?" I intentionally lowered my voice, adding a touch of grievance. Richard seemed to catch on, his stern expression softening just a bit. "Phil, sit in the passenger seat and fasten your seatbelt." "Okay, Mr. Bass." Richard drove in silence, eyes fixed on the road. From time to time, I'd steal glances at him. Those long lashes, sharp nose, he was breathtaking. But the man himself was so emotionless, almost unbearably cold. Just as I was thinking of ways to break the silence, Richard spoke first. "We're here." I stepped out reluctantly, waving half-heartedly. "Mr. Bass, I'm heading in." Richard nodded slightly, giving me a brief before rolling up the window and driving away. When I got back to the dorm, the sound of someone gaming filled the room. Harry spotted my defeated look and charged over excitedly. "Hey, what happened to you? You were on cloud 9 when school ended. Why the long face now?" I elbowed him. "Can you not talk like that?" I headed for the bathroom but stopped at the balcony. A mop stood there, still dripping water. I flicked on the light to see the mess clearly. I swear, can you wring out the mop properly and stop leaving it upside down here? I got caught up in the game. My bad, my bad. Can you help out? We're about to team up. Let's go. I cursed under my breath and began cleaning up. Suddenly my phone buzzed. I pulled it out and saw a text from my sister, "You're welcome." Right below it was a friend request. "I'm Richard." Holy crap. I calmed my nerves and accepted Richard's request. "Hi, Mr. Bass. Phil, from now on, I'll have you handle assignments and arrangements with your classmates." I blinked in surprise before replying, "Sure thing, Mr. Bass. What are you doing? Daydreaming? Did you see that? I just got a pentakill. It was sick." He leaned over and shouted, "No way. You actually have song bass on Instagram? Get out of here." Oh, by the way, do you know that long-haired guy? I heard he slit his wrists. Didn't make it. I frowned. Which department? John shook his head. Not sure, but he was on our floor. Even our third and fourth roommates moved out to live with their girlfriends. You better not leave too. I haven't been able to sleep well, man. I'm terrified. I was just about to mock his cowardice when a thought crossed my mind. Where does Mr. Bass live? Do you know? I think it's some apartment complex near the school. What's up? I pondered for a bit and then waved him off. Nothing. Go back to your game. In the following days, I was absurdly proactive in Richard's classes. Sometimes, I'd even grab a few well-written essays just for an excuse to discuss them with him. Honestly, I barely listened to his responses but had to fake a look of revelation each time. I'd walk him from his office to class and carry his laptop back to his office afterward. Richard finally stopped me one day. "Phil, that's really not necessary." I spread my hands and grinned. Serving Mr. Bass is my honor. "Oh right. Mr. Bass, are you free later?" Before he could answer, I stepped closer, nearly reaching his shoulder before he instinctively stepped back. I retracted my hand, plastering a smile. "So, Mr. Bass, want to grab dinner together?" He hesitated. "You should join your friends." But I just want to eat with Mr. Bass. Is that okay?" I stared straight into his eyes, leaving him no room to escape. Richard froze. The air felt thick with tension. I held my breath, betting he wouldn't say no. "All right. What do you want to eat?" I exhaled, leaning in just slightly and whispered playfully, "Whatever Mr. Bass eats, I'll eat." Richard cleared his throat. Let's go." That afternoon, like always, I helped Richard organize the things on the lectern after class. When our department head passed by our classroom, he cast us a glance before calling Richard out. "Sir, go ahead. I'll pack everything up and bring it to your office." Richard nodded and walked out, his expression heavy. I deliberately waited until most of the students had left before grabbing Richard's belongings and heading to his office. As I walked past the doorway, I heard the phlegmy voice of Professor Jones drifting out. "Richard, I genuinely recognize your abilities." "Thank you, Professor Jones. I've also heard about that matter of yours." Professor Jones paused and Richard remained silent for a long time. When there was no response, Professor Jones continued. "Topics like teacher-student relationships are always sensitive in society. I have absolute faith in your character, of course. But you've been through this kind of trouble before, so it's crucial to maintain distance and be mindful of appearances." "I understand. Thank you for the reminder, Professor Jones." Hearing their conversation, I couldn't help but wonder if Richard had been involved in something with a student before. After Professor Jones left, I tiptoed closer and knocked gently on the door. I placed Richard's things on his desk, full of questions, and was just about to leave when his voice stopped me. "Phil, you should focus more on your studies. My personal matters. I can handle them myself." I paused mid-step, instinctively asking, "Why?" I turned back to see Richard's slightly darkened expression. Suppressing a wave of emotion, I quickly switched the topic, unwilling to back down. "Will you come to our class basketball game?" "We'll see. I'll try to make it." On the day of the basketball game, I arrived early and waited on the path Richard always took to campus. From a distance, I spotted him. Just as I was about to rush over, I noticed another guy stepping out of his car. He was tall, dark-skinned, wearing a basketball uniform with the number 34 on his back. They chatted and laughed as they walked together. Even after that guy left, Richard stood there for a moment, watching him go. My excitement plummeted. When Richard finally walked over and noticed me, he said, "Phil, you're early. You don't look so good. You all right?" I swallowed down the surge of jealousy and forced a smile. I was just too excited to sleep well. Richard pursed his lips and nodded. Do your best. Play well." During the game, I was barely focused, mostly running on autopilot. I played several rounds continuously before my teammates suggested I sub out and take a break. I was about to agree when I saw the other team send in that number 34. "No switching. Keep playing. Phil, you've been at it for a while. You sure you're good?" I nodded firmly. "I'm fine." In the final match, they were 3 points ahead, visibly anxious. They put number 34 up front to use his height advantage, blocking my every move. When he stepped in front of me, I purposefully leaned into him. The moment he moved in with full force, I dramatically fell backward. From everyone else's angle, it looked like number 34 had crashed into me. He rushed over, apologizing repeatedly, his face full of guilt. My teammates immediately started yelling, demanding fairness. A few of the referees hurried over to mediate the chaos. Richard came striding over, his brows knitted with rare concern. "Are you all right? We should go to the hospital." I clutched my hand, gazing up at Richard's worried face, secretly overjoyed. "Teacher, I just wasn't in the best shape today." Richard helped me up, glancing at number 34 before saying nothing more. After the doctor patched me up, Richard asked again, "Did they hit you on purpose?" "No, it's just, I haven't been sleeping well lately," I mumbled, my voice growing softer. Richard's expression grew serious. "What's really going on?" I hesitated before admitting, "Promise you won't laugh at me." Richard, solemn as always, nodded. "I promise." I told him everything, about the weird things happening in my dorm, the eerie events, the backstory behind it all. After Harry moved out, it's just been me alone. And lately, I don't know if it's just in my head, but I can't sleep well. Honestly, I'm a bit scared. Richard didn't seem fazed. "So you think fear is something to be ashamed of, and you'd rather push yourself to the point of collapse instead of just moving out?" He sighed. "Fear is a normal emotion. If you're uncomfortable, you should move out, just like your roommate did." "I'm planning to. I've been looking for places near campus these past few days." Let's head back to school." Or, "Actually, never mind. What do you want to eat? I'll get it for you." "Anything's fine. Thank you, Mr. Bass." Watching his back as he walked away, I remembered some of my classmates saying they'd seen the long-haired guy too. Even John had mentioned waking up in the middle of the night to see a long-haired figure standing on the balcony. From that night on, John couldn't sleep well and kept having nightmares. He couldn't take it anymore and begged me to move out with him. I refused. "What? You too good for me now?" I looked at him. "I'm fine. You're just too jumpy. I have other plans." "Bro, how can I just leave you here alone? Do you think I'm that heartless?" I just stared at him. All right. If we share a place, it won't even cost that much. You know, most of my money goes to games anyway." Finally, I pulled a key card from my pocket and handed it to him. "Riverstone Apartments, Building A, Room 301. Password is 3698. Go live there first. The place has all the basics, but it's a bit far from campus. Make sure to wake up early." John looked like he had just seen God, cupping the card in his hands. "My lord, I swear my loyalty to you, my liege. Get out of here." "Right away, sir." He immediately started packing his stuff. I watched him. "And don't go running your mouth, all right?" 100%. I know you like to keep it low-key. I'm out. That night, around 10 p.m., Richard sent me several messages. All of them were housing recommendations. They were all neatly organized, with photos and detailed pros and cons listed for each place. I scrolled through them briefly and replied, "Thanks, Mr. Bass. My sister already found me a place." The typing bubble appeared almost instantly on his end. But it took a long time before his response came through, "Okay." I don't know why, but he seemed almost disappointed. I didn't think much of it back then. My mind was too busy buzzing with excitement over the fact that I would be moving in right across from Richard. I packed my things, took one last look at the empty dorm, and then quietly pulled out a black wig from under my bed, tossing it into the trash without expression. After moving into my new place, I tidied up quickly and calculated the timing. I pressed my ear against the door, counting down. I swung the door open, perfectly timing it as Richard stepped out of his apartment. "Whoa, Mr. Bass, you live here too? What a coincidence." Richard looked just as stunned, noticing my arms still in a sling and the trash I was carrying. "Need help with that? I can take it." "Thank you, Mr. Bass." He took the bags and I instinctively followed him down the hallway. "By the way, do you live alone here?" I nodded obediently. "How do you manage to eat then?" "Takeout." I scratched the back of my head, chuckling a bit sheepishly. "If you don't mind, you can come over and eat at my place during this time." My eyes lit up. "Really? I can." "Of course." During that period, I practically glued myself to Richard. He had no choice but to take care of me, and I shamelessly accepted it. He always made sure I was well fed, treating me like a precious patient. To thank Richard, I gifted him a corgi. He was thrilled and named it Bucky. Thanks to Bucky, Richard started talking to me a lot more. I frequently found excuses to visit the dog, which practically became my daily routine. The more I went, the more Bucky seemed to get annoyed, as if I were intruding on its territory. I glared at it, feeling a bit peeved. "If it weren't for the fact that my crush liked you and not me, I'd be living here instead of you, you little brat." And just like that, 3 years slipped by between me and Richard, neither too fast nor too slow. During those 3 years, I tried every possible way to get closer to him. I even shared my home's passcode with him, letting him come and go as he pleased. I shared trivial things with him, little moments and random thoughts. Richard remembered everything in detail, listened attentively, and could even recap the stories back to me. But the moment I tried to ask about his past, he would immediately retreat into his shell, falling completely silent. I really didn't want to go digging into his past without his consent. All I could do was wait. That morning, I couldn't get up. Richard's call came right on time, as always. "Mr. Bass, I can't get up. I don't want to go. Let me sleep a little longer." Richard hung up, hesitated for a while, and then just came over to wake me up himself. I glanced at him, then turned over, pulling the covers up to my head. With no other choice, Richard bent down and tried shaking me awake. I acted like a spoiled brat, grabbing his hand and pressing it against my cheek. "I just don't want to go." Richard tried to pull his hand back, but I held on tight. Giving up, he sat down next to me. "Phil." Richard's tone suddenly rose, and I could feel the warmth of his palm. Then his phone buzzed, a jarring ringtone cutting through the silence. He answered right away. "David? What's up?" I squinted my eyes upon hearing that familiar voice over the phone. Watching Richard's expression and the way his voice softened, I couldn't help but sit up with a bit of annoyance. When the call finally ended, Richard looked at me. "Mr. Bass is really kind to others, huh?" I didn't wait to see his reaction and pulled on a shirt, heading straight to the bathroom. Richard, seemingly confused, followed me. "Are you still upset over that time he accidentally hurt you during the basketball game? The student you care so much about, how could I possibly be angry at him? What do you mean by that?" I looked straight at him, unflinching. Exactly what it sounds like. I quickly pulled on my clothes and headed for the door. Halfway down the road, Richard's car pulled up beside me. "Get in. It's not far, I can walk." Richard took a deep breath. "You're going to be late." Then just deduct my points. He pulled over, got out, and ran after me. "Phil, be reasonable." Feeling like I might be overreacting, I stopped in my tracks and mumbled, "I'm not a child." David only came to thank me because he received a poverty grant. There's nothing more to it. That's it. Yeah, that's all. His family situation is complicated, and he's a good student. I just tried to help out. Honestly, I never expected him to explain it to me. He probably didn't even realize he had. Realizing that I'd come out on top, I climbed into his car obediently. After that little incident, things between Richard and me seemed to shift slightly. I could feel it. Richard wasn't rejecting me as much anymore. I remember one night, the power went out in the neighborhood. Richard was busy supervising his grad students and hadn't come back yet. I was getting anxious, so I gave him a call. Hello. Mr. Bass, are you home yet? Not yet. But what's wrong? I hesitated. It's just, the power's out. I'm scared. Aren't you a bit too old for that? Before he could finish, I cut him off. Didn't you say it's okay for anyone to be scared? I lowered my voice. I don't have candles, my phone's almost dead. You know I moved out because of those creepy things that happened last time. Richard went silent for a moment before speaking gently. I'm almost done. I'll be back soon. But I didn't even have to wait that long. Within minutes, the door swung open. I rushed into Richard's arms. Though he was taller and sturdier than me, the impact made him stumble back a few steps. He patted my back softly. It's all right, don't think about those things. I buried my face in his shoulder, nodding fervently. Mr. Bass, you came back so fast. I thought I'd be waiting forever. Did you rush back because I called you? Through the dim light from the window, I looked up at Richard and saw him studying me intently. Our eyes met, and Richard nodded slightly. I held him tighter. Mr. Bass, can you stay with me tonight? Richard opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Just as I moved in, lips barely a finger's width away, he gently pushed me away. I'll bring Bucky over to keep you company. He practically bolted out of the room. I lowered my gaze. After all that, he brought me a dog? Really, Richard? You're really something. Life continued on, moving neither fast nor slow. My progress with Richard remained stagnant. Every time I took a step forward, he'd take a step back. This went on until my senior year, when it was time for internships. Because of the university's partnership programs, companies often came to give recruitment talks. It was at one of those events that I met Jackson Watson. The man was strikingly handsome, high nose, thin lips, fair skin. He had his sleeves casually rolled up, speaking with humor and flair that had the students constantly cheering. I couldn't help but steal a few glances. After the event, I was about to leave when Jackson approached me. Phil, right? I nodded, looking at him. I checked out your records. You've done quite well, and before I came, I spoke with your professors. A lot of them recommended you. So, any interest in joining TES? Seeing my hesitation, Jackson pressed on. What's wrong? Are you planning on going to grad school or maybe pursuing a government position? I wanted to talk to my parents first. Jackson chuckled. Of course. It's always good to include family in big decisions. I was just about to leave for lunch with Richard when Jackson called out to me again. He glanced toward the crowded school gate. Phil, it's lunchtime. Want to join me? Phil. Before I could answer, Richard's voice rang out. When Richard saw Jackson, his whole posture shifted into one of guardedness, his expression turning unusually cold. Jackson noticed him as well. Mr. Bass. I didn't expect to see you here. Long time no see. He reached out to shake Richard's hand. Richard didn't even look at him. He simply turned to me and said, "Let's go." Jackson watched Richard's back with an amused smile. I followed Richard, glancing back at Jackson, confused. You two know each other? No. I wasn't sure if it was just my imagination, but lately, Richard seemed to be avoiding me. It became nearly impossible to catch him. His phone was off and off, and he stopped replying on Instagram. I glanced at the cold medicine sitting on my desk and an idea formed in my mind. When I burned with fever to the point of passing out, Richard finally showed up. The moment I saw him, I blacked out completely. All those nights standing out in the cold, soaking in freezing rain, it was worth it. When I woke up, Richard gave me a few instructions before getting ready to leave. I looked at him, my voice slightly hoarse. But I still feel terrible. Is it really that much of a bother to stay with me a little longer? Richard's eyes flickered downward, and he gently pried my hand off his sleeve. You need to rest. I'll inform your teacher that you're excused. There it was again. Always the same. I watched his back as he disappeared down the hall, my eyes darkening with frustration. Anger welled up inside me. I yanked out the 4-needle in my arm, and the nurse hurried over, alarmed. Hey, what are you doing? You haven't finished the drip, you can't leave. I'm done. Just give me the medicine. But you still have a fever. I suppressed my irritation, forcing a smile as I stared her down, enunciating each word slowly. I said I'm done. Nurse, can you please give me the medicine? The nurse hesitated for a moment, slightly startled, then handed me the meds and quickly backed away. I put on my mask and, head still foggy, somehow managed to make it back home. I tossed the medicine onto the table and collapsed onto the couch. Jackson's face kept flashing through my mind. Everything was going well before he appeared. Richard was finally starting to warm up to me. Just a bit more effort and he would have accepted me. But ever since Jackson showed up, Richard's attitude went back to square one. Thinking of that, a shadow crossed my face. I pulled out my phone and sent Jackson's basic information to my sister. Sis, can you look into someone for me? After a hazy nap, I was woken by the sound of the doorbell. Clinging to a sliver of hope, I dragged myself up and went to answer it. The moment I saw the delivery guy standing there, my heart sank. He handed me the package and rushed off. I shut the door, feeling dejected. Of course, Richard knew the code to my place. If he was coming, he wouldn't need to ring the bell. What I didn't notice was the figure lingering at the corner near the elevator, watching for a long time. I didn't stay home for long before a package from my sister arrived, full of documents. I sifted through them, and as I read the contents, my heart clenched painfully. The next day, I took a moment to compose myself and headed downstairs. To my surprise, Jackson was leaning casually against his car, waiting for me. Why are you here? I saw from the HR notice that you're one of the interns. Since my future star employee is sick, I came to pick you up. Isn't that a bit too much, Jackson? Does the company always pick up its employees like this? Jackson chuckled, his eyes crinkling with amusement. Of course not. This is purely out of personal interest. I cherish both talent and affection. I raised an eyebrow. Well, thank you for the special treatment, Jackson. I locked up my bike and got into Jackson's car. Out of all the interns placed at TES, Jackson only picked me to work directly with him. At work, he was incredibly attentive, always watching out for me. Every few days, he'd drive me back home. And every single time, I'd see Richard walking Bucky downstairs. I would nod at Richard, pat Bucky on the head, and head straight upstairs. We didn't exchange any words beyond that. One day, I went to hand over some documents to Jackson. I opened his office door, only to see him holding a woman gently, speaking softly to her. The moment he saw me, a flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. He quickly gestured for me to step back quietly. After I stepped out, I overheard some colleagues whispering. I heard about the TES heiress before. Now I finally get to see her in person. Mr. Watson is handsome and she's gorgeous. They're perfect for each other. No kidding. Without that face of his, how could Mr. Watson catch a rich heiress? Shoo, keep it down. Their chattering made my thoughts drift. I couldn't quite put my finger on how I felt, but suddenly, I really wanted to see Bucky. One of my coworkers noticed me. Hey, Phil's quite the looker too. Maybe you'll snag a rich girlfriend if you work hard enough. I forced a smile and returned to my desk. Not long after, I saw that woman leave with a bright smile. Jackson helped her carry her suitcase, escorting her out. He didn't come back until the end of the workday. Just as I was about to leave with the others, Jackson called me back. When most of the people had cleared out, I followed him to the parking lot. Suddenly, Jackson slipped his arm around my waist. I didn't move away, letting him do as he pleased. Jackson, don't you have a girlfriend? I don't like her. I'm just interested in her status. I was surprised by his bluntness. Isn't that kind of using her? Jackson chuckled, retracting his hand and playfully pinching my cheek. You're still young. You don't understand. In this world, to survive, you have to use whatever resources you have. Morality gets you nowhere. The higher you climb, the more you can have what you really want. He fixed his gaze on me, eyes sharp. I grabbed his hand. Aren't you afraid people will find out, Jackson? Jackson's eyes darkened, and he tilted my chin up. That's why I expect you to be a smart and obedient kid. Jackson, at least let me think about it. His lips curled up. Of course, I'm sure you won't disappoint me. Thanks to the school enterprise partnership, many students secured jobs, so the school decided to host a co-creation night. We were all expected to participate and perform. Jackson suggested we do couples dances. When the groups were matched up, it turned out only Jackson and I were left. Everyone started hyping up the idea of one of us dressing up as a woman. Seeing my hesitation, Jackson volunteered. I'll do it. I'll wear the dress. And that was how it was decided. On days when work ended early, Jackson would come find me for dance practice. He was incredibly skilled. Just watching him was like seeing the perfect execution of each move. I, on the other hand, struggled. With the performance coming up, I could only resort to borrowing the school's dance studio to practice last minute. The weather had turned colder, and the wind biting through the open windows made it worse. Just as I was about to close the window, I looked up and saw Richard standing outside, his expression chillingly cold. Mr. Bass, you're still here? Richard strode in, grabbed me by the arm, and yanked me out with surprising force. I couldn't break free. Mr. Bass. Richard. Let go of me. He didn't stop until we reached his apartment. The moment we were inside, Richard pinned me against the door and kissed me, trapping my hands above my head. The kiss was deep and dizzying, my mind completely unraveled. I didn't know how long it lasted before he finally stopped, arms still bracketing me against the wall. He glared at me, eyes blazing with fury. Why are you with him? I'm not with anyone. He picks you up, takes you out to eat, practices dancing with you, and you even go on business trips together, Realizing what he just said, I raised my voice. You're stalking me? Richard frowned but didn't answer. Instead, he tilted his head, pressing his lips to my neck. I could feel him sucking hard, almost biting, his strength nearly painful. The sharp sensation made me instinctively try to push him away. Is this how a teacher talks to a student? Richard's lips trailed upward, nipping at my earlobe, his voice husky and urgent. And how should I talk him? Teach me. I froze, speechless. It was my first time seeing Richard like this, so unrestrained, so raw. I was caught off guard, shrinking back a bit, feeling wronged. You were the one ignoring me. Richard finally snapped back to his senses, his eyes softening. I'm sorry. I didn't consider your feelings. I was too scared to face it. I just wanted to run away. He kept blaming himself over and over, and I could even see his eyes redden slightly. I reached out and wrapped my arms around his waist. Stop, it's going to be okay. We stood there, holding each other, feeling each other's warmth. Richard leaned in and kissed me again, tenderly, deeply. That night, I gave in to all of Richard's desires. When I woke up, it was already 2 or 3 in the afternoon the next day. Richard was nowhere to be found. I dashed to the bathroom, took a quick shower, and rummaged through his closet for something to wear. I grabbed a comfy set of loungewear and threw it on, planning to head back to my place, grab my suit, and rush to the makeup appointment. But when I got to the door, I realized something was off. Richard had locked the door from the outside. I turned back to look for my phone, only to find it missing. Even my clothes had been washed and were hanging to dry on the balcony. I looked down at Bucky by my feet. Hey, did you see where your dad put my phone? Bucky gave me a wise look, then trotted back to his food bowl, ignoring me completely. I tore Richard's place apart, searching for my phone, but it was nowhere to be found. Frustrated, I scavenged the fridge for food, sharing a meal with Bucky, and we both waited for the master of the house to return. It wasn't until 5 or 6 in the evening that I finally saw Richard's shadow approaching. Oh my God, you're finally back. Where's my phone? I'm gonna be late. Give it back to me. I was too busy ranting to notice the dark expression flickering across Richard's face as I moved towards the door. Richard slammed the door shut with a loud bang, wrapping his arms around me from behind. You're not going. We stood there locked in silence for a few minutes before Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out my phone, handing it to me. I powered it on, and instantly it was flooded with missed calls and Instagram notifications. As I hesitated on whether to reply, Richard suddenly spoke. You can leave now if you want, and I won't interfere anymore. Or you can stay. But if you choose to stay, you stay with me and nothing else matters. Richard sat on the couch, staring at me quietly, his gaze penetrating, almost unsettling. Just like how I always bet on him not rejecting me, Richard was betting that I wouldn't leave. Mr. Bass, I'm hungry. What are we eating today? I handed my phone back to him, letting out a sigh. After all, I liked him. What did it matter if I put everything else on hold? Richard's expression brightened up, like a child who got exactly what he wanted. He got up, kissed my cheek softly, and headed to the kitchen. After dinner, we snuggled on the couch, watching a movie together. Suddenly, a loud knock rattled the door. Richard glanced at the security monitor and signaled me to hide. When he opened the door, Jackson stood there, his voice sharp and demanding. Have you seen Phil? Richard's expression was flat. No idea. He moved to shut the door, but Jackson blocked it with his hand, his gaze scanning the room with scrutiny. Once satisfied there was no one else, Jackson smirked sarcastically. Still hooking up with your students, huh? Living with them now. Richard let out a laugh, cold and dismissive. You think everyone is like you? Jackson just grinned, undeterred. I know you like little Phil. You've been following me more than once. Did you think I wouldn't notice, Mr. Bass? He leaned in closer, voice dropping to a whisper. What do you think little Phil will do when he finds out all those dirty little secrets of yours? I'm really looking forward to it. Richard's fists clenched, his voice tight with rage. Get out. He slammed the door shut with force. Outside, Jackson seemed to revel in the victory, lingering for a moment before finally walking away. I had heard everything, but unlike before, I didn't rush out to question Richard. When he came back inside, he looked utterly drained. I walked up to him and wrapped my arms around him. It'll pass, don't think about it. We held each other close, chest to chest. Richard looked down, and his lips found mine, warm and fervent. Time slipped by, and Bucky had turned over in his sleep countless times. Meanwhile, I was left exhausted, practically falling apart. Richard didn't stop even when my phone began ringing incessantly. He picked it up, glanced at the caller ID, and his face darkened. He immediately put it on airplane mode and shut it off, tossing it aside before resuming what he was doing. When I woke up, I could barely move. I curled up next to Richard, my body pressed tightly against his. He had one arm around me, the other reaching for his phone to check the time. He looked down at me, his voice gentle. Hungry? A little. Get some more sleep. I'll go get breakfast. After Richard left, it took me ages to drag myself out of bed, shuffling step by step to the bathroom. I took a long shower, letting the hot water ease the soreness. When I came back to the room, I found my phone on the floor where it had been tossed last night. I ignored all the messages from Jackson, but one text from an unknown number caught my attention. Got it. Hearing the door keypad beep, I quickly deleted the message and turned to greet Richard. It smells amazing, Mr. Bass. I took the food from him and began devouring it without hesitation. Slow down, you're gonna choke, Richard said, amused but a bit concerned. I ate happily, but Richard seemed distracted, his expression tense, as if something weighed on his mind. I paused and looked him straight in the eyes. Richard, I've been chasing you for almost 4 years now. I want to be with you. I'm not forcing you, and if you want to talk, talk. If you don't, then don't. I won't believe what anyone else says. I only believe you. Richard visibly relaxed, letting out a long breath. He began to tell me everything about him and Jackson. Jackson was one of the first graduate students Richard ever mentored. He admired Jackson's innovation and even shared his own research projects with him, co-authoring papers. But out of nowhere, Jackson filed a report against Richard, accusing him of sexual misconduct during his time as a mentor. He spread the news everywhere, on every school platform. Though there was no solid evidence, Richard's family had to pull strings to clear his name and reinstate him. When Richard asked Jackson why, Jackson merely laughed and said, "Why not? Ruining you for a better opportunity was worth it." To avoid further scandal, the university quietly asked Richard to apply for a position elsewhere, which is how he ended up here. Listening to his story, I realized it was exactly what my sister had found out. The Richard the first knew, reserved, distant, cautious, always holding back, was not the same person as the bright, spirited young man in my sister's graduation photos. I gripped his hand tightly, saying nothing. I thought to myself, soon, very soon, it will all pass. Yeah, from what I heard, Mr. Watson wanted to keep someone on the side, and it's a guy. And apparently he's been taking kickbacks and embezzling funds. This morning, HQ sent people to look for him, but he was nowhere to be found. What a shame. He was just about to close the deal with BMW. Guess that's off the table now. I smirked, thinking to myself, looks like all those things I dug up worked out just fine. Jackson, oh Jackson, how does it feel to be stabbed in the back? Just as I was basking in satisfaction, a colleague suddenly yanked at the headphones slung around my neck. I jerked back instinctively. He gave me a puzzled look. You young people, you think wearing headphones around your neck makes you some kind of cool sports boy? My ears went hot, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything. If it weren't for the fact that Richard had bitten me so hard, I wouldn't have dug out this old thing to cover it up. With the weather this warm, wearing a scarf would have made me look like a lunatic. This was the only solution. Jackson had been missing for days. I was beginning to think he had just run off and left all his mess behind, but then he appeared before me, disheveled and furious. It was you, wasn't it? You recorded it and sent it to her. I looked at him, completely unbothered. Yup. Why? I shrugged. Because I don't like you. You're an idiot. If you just stuck with me, did your job right, you could have gotten so much more. Don't you know I was about to close the deal with BMW? Do you have any idea how much profit that would have made? I scoffed, looking him dead in the eye. Why would I stoop to your level? And do you even know the surname of BMW's board director? Jackson paused, frowning as if trying to remember. Suddenly his eyes shot up. Collins Ridley. I clicked my tongue, smirking. That would be my father. So, all of this, it was for Richard. Jackson practically screamed, his voice echoing down the hallway. Watching him lose it, I crossed my arms and replied coldly, "You messed with my boyfriend, so I messed with you. However you hurt him, I returned it in full. How does it feel to get your own medicine? Why? Why does everyone treat him so well? He has everything. Everyone fawns over him, worships him, and he just throws away whatever he doesn't need, acting all kind and generous to others. It's disgusting." I couldn't help but laugh. Jackson, I genuinely feel bad for Richard. He helped you, and you turned out to be a snake. Without another word, I swung my fist at him. Jackson, on the brink of madness, just laughed and cursed. I pulled back, straightened my clothes, and said coolly, "There will be lawyers coming for you, old cases, new cases, everything you've done. You won't escape a single one. I'm gonna see this through to the end." When I got back home, Richard immediately noticed the blood on my knuckles. What happened? I waved it off casually. Fell off my bike, scraped it a bit. As he dabbed antiseptic on my hand, I couldn't help but lean into him. "Your birthday's coming up. I got you a special gift." Richard rubbed my head gently. "Just having you with me is enough. Nothing else matters." A month later, I contacted Richard's old university and sent them evidence that proved Richard's innocence from the previous scandal. I also filed a defamation lawsuit against Jackson. It turned out, during one of Jackson's shady dealings, his partner had secretly recorded their conversation as leverage, just in case Jackson turned on him. The university immediately published a statement online, formally clearing Richard's name from the sexual harassment accusations and announcing disciplinary actions against those involved. The incident was brought back into the public eye, and the narrative shifted drastically. The internet, already filled with hostility, tore Jackson apart, nailing him to the wall with insults and accusations. The court ordered Jackson to pay damages, but the real injury was already done. The cost of spreading lies was low, but the consequences were irreversible. When we stepped out of the courthouse, Richard couldn't stop staring at me, his emotions long buried now flooding to the surface. I pulled him into a tight hug. "I told you it would all pass. Didn't I?" My sister sniffled from behind us, looking like she was about to cry. I pulled out a tissue and handed it to her. "If you cry, your makeup will smudge." She shot me a look. "You don't get it. I'm just overwhelmed." She turned to Richard. "You went through all that, and you didn't tell us a thing." I rolled my eyes. "Sis, given the situation back then, what did you expect him to say?" Fine, you always know best." "Oh, by the way, Dad asked if you're coming back for dinner tonight." I squeezed Richard's hand. "Nope. Tell them I'll bring my boyfriend back another time." Richard's face flushed red instantly. After my sister left, he turned to me, eyes wide. "So you and your sister are—" I quickly clapped a hand over his mouth. "My family's very low-key. If we don't want people to know, they won't find out." Then I stood on my toes and kissed him. "Do you like the birthday gift I got you, Mr. Bass?" "Thank you for the gift," he murmured, his eyes softening. "By the way, how did you get that recording?" I smiled. "Used a little social influence." In truth, I had traced that senior professor's connections to Jackson, discovering they were still in contact. During the investigation, I learned that the old man had recorded a video as leverage. A little scare from a few hired hands, and the guy, already old and frail, spilled everything. He knew he was in the wrong and couldn't do anything about it. On my graduation day, Richard's parents flew to America. Our two families had a simple dinner together, catching up and chatting. Richard was an only child, but his parents were surprisingly open-minded. They had never been against Richard liking men. In fact, at first, they even had a good impression of Jackson. No one imagined things would turn out the way they did. His parents had pulled every string they could just to protect his career. That's why when they heard Richard was getting close to another student, they were still wary. But now, with everything resolved and Richard's name cleared, their doubts finally faded. They stayed for a few days, exploring the city, and before leaving, Richard's mother pulled me aside. "Thank you, Phil. Thank you for everything you've done for Richard." She turned to him, her expression gentle but firm. "You're older than him. You have to take good care of him." After that, I moved out of my place and officially moved in with Richard. Before, we had to sneak around on campus, worried about what people might think. Now, we could finally be together, out in the open. Summer came in full bloom, sunlight radiant and dazzling, painting the world with warmth. I put on the earrings Richard had given me before, admiring my reflection in the mirror. "How do I look, Richard?" He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. His fingers traced along my earlobe gently. "You look beautiful with them. I love them. I love you, Phil."
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.